Hello there. Nicola Sturgeon has at last been arrested by Police Scotland. Where now for independence? The former SNP leader and First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, has been arrested by Police Scotland as part of the Operation Branch Form investigation into the finances of the SNP. Or maybe lack of finances. And it was probably an inevitability given that the other two signatories to the SNP accounts, Sturgeon's husband and former SNP Chief Exec Peter Murrell, and the former SNP National Treasurer Colin Beattie, had already been arrested, interviewed and released without charge. Now we must remember that Sturgeon must be assumed as innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But as she has been arrested as a suspect, Humza Yousaf might be under pressure to take some sort of action against her, maybe to temporarily suspend her from the party. As the Police Scotland statement said, a 52-year-old woman has today, Sunday the 11th of June 2023, been arrested as a suspect in connection with the ongoing investigation into the funding and finances of the Scottish National Party. But to be fair to Sturgeon, she did voluntarily attend, and the SNP says she and the party will cooperate fully. But the SNP is going radio silent on this issue because, they say, of the ongoing police inquiry. What a difference a year makes. Back in the beginning of 2022, Nicola and her SNP were very vocal on Boris Johnson and his Partygate difficulties, weren't they? And every Wednesday, the pompous Ian Blackford would climb puffing to his feet to accuse Boris and his Tories of everything under the sun and demand resignations, etc. But now the boot's on the other foot, so let's see how they like it. But the real question is, will this deliver a crippling hit to the Scottish independence cause? Or can the SNP keep that cause going? Or will it be Alex Salmond's Alba Party that reaps the rewards? Or could it be Keir Starmer's Labour Party that hoovers up the seats in Scotland that it needs to achieve a UK majority at the next general election? And given this weekend's news, I would think that Starmer might be the one cracking open the champagne as we speak, while phoning around his team and telling them to prepare for government. And being a cynic, I'm just wondering if the Labour Party's decision to U-turn over their 28 billion quid green push might then lead to the no new North Sea drilling licences policy that the unions tell us would lead to Scottish job losses also being delayed in order to protect those jobs in the short term, for election purposes. Anyway, as I said at the start, Sturgeon should be considered as innocent, something that two guests on the Nana Acquia show reinforced due to their own personal experiences. The UKIP leader Neil Hamilton and his wife Christine Hamilton both explained how they had been arrested and put through the legal and political meat grinder before having all charges dropped. So one outcome could well be that Sturgeon and her husband and Colin Beattie could all walk away with no case to answer without a stain on their characters, with no further action from the police. But the real nasty news here is that Labour will end up with a large majority, not because they've got the ideas and policies to salvage the nation, no, just because the Tories and the SNP are imploding. The electorate would be freeing us from the sleazy only to hand us over to the clueless. We desperately need a Tory party replacement now. And that leads me into an addition to my What Next for Boris Johnson video from this morning. Nigel Farage has just about offered the former PM a place within his Reform Party while talking to Nana Acquia on this afternoon's GB News show. As far as Nigel is concerned, if Boris wants to salvage his Brexit legacy, then that is the only realistic route for him to take, to join Reform or join forces with them. Farage appears to be opening the door and beckoning him in, despite all their previous differences of opinion. And there is a lot of talk out there that this Nigel-Boris partnership would be a dream result, resulting in voters queuing up to support them and donors queuing up to pay the bills. But there are also many Reform supporters who would walk away from the party if Boris was brought into the fold, because of issues like his responses to the health emergency and his lax view on inward migration, and squandering an 80-seat majority by not delivering a full Brexit. But from what Nigel has said today, I'm sure he will, as a sharp political operator, have done his due diligence on that one and will also have formed a political route through it all. But as ever, this is politics, and you cannot please everyone all the time. And whenever there are winners, there are also inevitably losers. Those that benefit and those that lose out. And it looks like Nigel Farage has decided that with Boris on board, his party would gain more than it loses. Richard.
Well, well. Former Scotland First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested. Now, I'm going to keep this brief, and all I'm going to say is this. It can take a very long time, unfortunately. But it is what was done in plain sight in Scotland that worries me. Scotland was placed under draconian rule during the global health emergency by Nicola Sturgeon and her government. But that was and remains legally unchallenged. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if you are pro-independence or against it. What matters is a dictatorship gripped the nations of the UK in 2020 and 2021. Yet, maintained so-called legitimate rule during and after the event. Mull over that. Yeah, liars and deceivers, the lot of them. So this is my take on Boris, okay? So let me get this straight now. Boris, who incidentally spoke of toxic masculinity, he made us prisoners in our own homes and prevented us from meeting one another whilst he partied like it's 1999 in Downing Street and mingled with world leaders with no social distancing. And I hasten to add they partied and mingled with no fear of contracting or spreading a certain illness. Yet people now sticking up for Boris and in disgust of his treatment have got plenty to say. Oh, I'm sorry, but these people had no fear of the illness sweeping the earth and forced mandates upon us, shut businesses, stopped us from saying goodbye and holding the hands of our loved ones as they passed away. And no sympathy should be afforded to people like Boris Johnson, who can shove his net zero panache up his you-know-what. And to my horror, I just watched GB News, where Nigel Farage hinted that he would be prepared to invite Boris and other Tory MPs over to some new party. Possibly Reform, he hinted at. I hope I read this wrong. I hope I'm reading his comments wrong, because this would be the end of the Reform Party for me, as it would be for many of you. Farage said that it would take big household names to win an election against the Conservative and Labour parties, but that is probably the most defeatist thing I've ever heard Nigel Farage say, because it's not people that win elections, it's clearly communicated vision that resonates with people that wins elections. To be honest, I was very much taken aback by Farage's comments, and as I said, I may have misread the whole thing, so before speculating any further, I would just like to see how this develops. But I will say that honestly, I think I would be in direct opposition with Reform at that point if Boris and a load of other Tories came over. And, you know, if I read his comments correctly, that's what he said. And Farage was in agreement with Johnson over a certain rollout, a certain thing that goes in your body, rollout. Farage agreed with it. I might be reading that wrong. I just hope that I am wrong here and I got the wrong end of the stick with Farage's comments, because the last thing we need is Reform morphing into Tory Party 2.0 filled with the same net zero liberal lefty ideology as the current Conservative Party. We don't need another face of the establishment. I have little to no faith left in the political process and the ballot box, because I believe the ballot box is a ruse designed to make us think we can affect change in our lives. Although I will still support the Reclaim Party and a small political party in Wales, but that's it for me, and I hold no hope that the establishment, well, I know the establishment will not allow parties like Reform to affect change. Yes, we all know who our masters really are, and who our, let's just say, our leaders in power, you know, in the House of Commons. We know who they really represent. Yeah, they go to Davos and have a little meeting with them. Look, I totally understand that some of you still believe in the political system, and that is your choice, but I think it's time we, as the people of this land, started to form our own ideas about our own lives. We should really look at building our own communities, and in a broader sense, we need to bring together the best minds we can. But we now have another threat, and that is AI. And AI will soon be able to outmaneuver us mentally and physically. The prison is about to become more obvious to even the most trustworthy of citizens. And this isn't some conspiratorial conjecture, it is a fact. Anyway, what do you lot think about what Jeff and I have discussed in today's videos? Excrete your wisdom all over us in the comment section below, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow to midday for Jeff's early risings. And we will both see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day. God bless.